Hello and welcome to another Lunch and Learn from Roofers Coffee Shop. My name is Heidi Ellsworth and we are here today to provide you the information you need to grow your business. And I'm very excited about what we're doing today when it comes to talking about new technology in metal. And we have three learning objectives: the new technology for metal roofing, to learn about it, the performance of Tedlar PVF film, and finally, the field performance of the Tedlar PVF film.
My name is Corynn Sheridan. I'm the Global Marketing Director for DuPont Tedlar. So Tedlar, we'll get into the history of what Tedlar PVF film is, but it is a product that has been part of DuPont's portfolio for over 60 years. It was invented in the 1960s by DuPont, and it has been used in metal architecture for almost the entirety of that time since its invention, and is now kind of making waves in the US, especially in coastal applications for roofing and facades. So DuPont Tedlar is based on a polymer technology. It's a polyvinyl fluoride film. So you're probably not familiar with the molecule for PVDF, but this looks quite similar. It has just one fluorine unit instead of two, which makes it inherently more flexible and more chemically resistant. These are some of the attributes of polyvinyl fluoride, or PVF, the technology Tedlar film is based on. So it is extremely durable. It's very UV resistant. So it does not change color. It doesn't chalk, doesn't fade, doesn't crack. It's very, very consistent over a long period of time. It's extremely chemically resistant. So it's a very inert polymer, meaning it doesn't really react with anything at all. So it's going to resist corrosion. It's going to resist that nasty bubbling, all the things that happen when you're exposed to corrosive elements. It's very flexible. So it can bend to super tight bends without any cracking issues or exposure, which is excellent for metal roofing and facade panels that require tight bends or other complex shapes. It's dirt shedding, so nothing sticks to it. It's a self-cleaning material. It's very easy to clean. Rainwater rinses everything right off of it. So it keeps a really nice, fresh new look. And it also passes smoke and fire codes. So it's a very safe material to build with.
So when you really are looking at this and you think about that durability, being able to bend it, to put it through the normal sheet metal shop, and then the fact that it will shed dirt, I mean, that's pretty impressive, especially once you get up so high. You aren't going to be able to clean it all the time, but yet it's going to look great.
Yeah, it's really good for building construction, especially big structures that can't deal with a lot of cleaning. It's going to look brand new for as long as you keep it up. So here's a few of the applications where Tedlar is used. So like I mentioned, it was invented in the 60s. So it's been around for a long time, and it was specified very early on into aircraft. So if you're flying, you touch the sidewall of the plane, you're touching Tedlar. And it's there because it is so easy to clean. It keeps the inside of planes sterile. It's very durable. So all the wear and tear planes go through, that Tedlar is going to keep it fresh, clean, looking nice the whole time. Also, building and construction, which is what we'll talk about today. Graphics and signage, anti-graffiti signage, because it's so cleanable and it protects bright colors and graphics from fading. It's also been used in solar panels to prevent, obviously, against UV damage, but also moisture damage on the backside. It's on the underside of cars. So just like in coastal environments, salt spray, roads go through the same thing. So the brake tubes and fuel lines under cars are protected from the salt spray and the impact of stones with PVF. And then wall covering, wallpaper, wall panels, so inside of homes and buildings as well, that require cleanability and heavy wear and tear protection.
Wow.
And then again, the timeline, invented in the 1940s, I believe I incorrectly said 60s because it's 60 years, invented in the 40s was the PVF polymer. But in the 60s, Tedlar was registered as a brand and was produced in upstate New York. So Tedlar is produced 100% in the United States. We have two manufacturing facilities. One is in Buffalo, New York. One is in Ohio. It was specified into aircraft interiors and anti-graffiti signage almost right away, and then started being used in building construction shortly after that. So we have over 50 years of real world application data of building construction, exteriors and interiors for Tedlar film.
When you're looking at that stadium, that is all covered with Tedlar on that roofing system, right?
Yep. So you're seeing Tedlar. So the top is actually an air inflated structure, which Tedlar is used in air inflated structures as well, because again, self-cleaning keeps it nice and bright. And Tedlar is used all in those metal siding facades you see under the air inflated structure.
Excellent.
So when it comes to metal roofing and facades, these are some of the clear benefits to using Tedlar. It consistently beats PVDF coatings across any performance metric you could look at. Any other coating system, Tedlar will perform as good or better. Manufactured 100% in the US. It's a premium product, but it has a history of consistent pricing, consistent supply availability because it is manufactured domestically. As I said, outperforms PVDF. And we know that because we've got the lab data, but we also have the outdoor exposure data to prove it. And it has no coastal restrictions. We'll get into that with the warranty on the film, but no coastal restrictions around using Tedlar because it does all corrosive elements, saltwater buildup, wash right off in the rain, doesn't impact the film in any way. Extremely low maintenance because self-cleaning, extraordinary resistance to fade. We'll look at some examples of that as well. And the flexibility and formability that make it so good for tight bends on panels. So how it's applied is very similar to how a Kynar coating or any other coating system or paint system is applied. On a coil coating line, the Tedlar film is laminated in a continuous fashion directly to the metal. There are several adhesives that are compatible, but there's DuPont adhesives that are protecting on the metal. So use that instead of a primer and you lay the Tedlar right on top of it. They don't react to any kind of moisture or temperature change. Once they're on, it's permanently bonded. And that creates a nice permanent solution for building exteriors. And when it's applied the same way as a painted panel, so a painted coil. So it could be formed in the same way, installed the same way, basically however you would apply a typical aluminum or steel roofing or facade, you would do the same with Tedlar. And when Tedlar is manufactured, it's actually manufactured in a biaxially oriented process, which means it's pulled in multiple directions. So we stretch the Tedlar in two different ways during its manufacture to basically expose any weaknesses in the film. So paint has issues sometimes with pinholes, which is basically the solvent drying off. So it creates these tiny little bubbles under the paint. And that can expose the metal over time. So these little pinholes will eventually pop. They're thinner areas of coating, which causes corrosive elements to get inside if it's in a damaging environment. Tedlar cannot have any holes. They'd get ripped wide open during our manufacturing process if they existed. So when Tedlar is applied to metal, we know that it's consistent performance. It's going to be a nice flat level of protection, and there are no weak areas that will get exposed over time. We basically have that built-in quality check. And then, like I said, we've got proven protection for over 50 years. So these are just some pictures of older installations. We have a lot in Asia Pacific, especially in Japan, which is one of the most corrosive environments in the world. A lot of coastlines. We've got a lot of very industrial applications as well as coastal applications. So, that it's been through the wear and tear. We also have done our home manufacturing plant in New York is covered in Tedlar. So we've got, 40 plus years of no color fade there. And then we've got facades in Europe and then some more recent installations in the US that we'll get into, but 50 plus years of proven performance.
That is amazing. And it really is one of those things where you look at it and it's such a well-known name too. So there's a high level of confidence in what is between the experience, the name, the brand. That's a big part of understanding that new technology, knowing even though it's a new technology, it's from a very well-established, and it's actually not that new. Right. It's just new to us right now.
It's new to us. Exactly. Yeah. It's new to building construction in the US, but yeah, it's a product DuPont's very proud of and has really, relied on and used in so many different applications over the last half a century. So low maintenance is one of the biggest benefits of Tedlar. This is actually a real Tedlar roof. This is a Hilton Head installation that was done last year. So you can see it's right by the coastline. As I mentioned, it's dirt shedding, which means that it's going to get washed clean in the rain. Things aren't going to stick to it. Mold and mildew do not grow on it because it's so inert. So there is no plasticizers or any of that kind of nasty stuff that organic growth likes to eat. You're not going to get any of that here. So it's really good in moist environments and coastal environments. And this gives building owners peace of mind because there's going to be a lot less upkeep over the lifetime of a building. It's not going to require any freshwater rinsing. It's not if you need to replace a panel. We'll look at that for the fade, but the colors will match perfectly if you need to replace a panel, no matter how long ago you installed the roof. So you're going to have a roof you can really rely on for those 50 plus years. Extraordinary resistance to fade is one of the strongest performance attributes about Tedlar, is that it basically doesn't change color over time. So this chart is showing you a delta in color over 15 years of Florida exposure. The Tedlar is the gray line at the bottom. So you can see there's about 1 degree of color change and then nothing. 15 years. You'll see PVDF kind of steadily will change over time. And then, less expensive coating systems like polyester, SMP will change rapidly in those first few years and then kind of flatten out.
That's really important when there's damage and you want to just replace one section instead of having to replace the whole roof. That makes a big difference.
Exactly. Yes, you can feel really confident that you're just going to have to replace the damaged area. So what you're seeing here is a real world example of that resistance to fade. So we have two facades. One has been out for 34 years, one for 41 years. And what you're seeing is us actually holding fresh film, freshly manufactured film right up against those aged facades. And you can see the film that we're holding up is exactly the same color as the side of the building. So there has been no visible color change in those 34 and 41 years of outdoor exposure.
You know, when you look at that on the left, Corynn, you can't even hardly see it.
You can't even see it.
It just goes right in. Yeah,
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yes. We have tons of examples like this. So we know that Tedlar is going to look really good for a long time. So what we're seeing here is basically the similar representation of what we just looked at. So this is actually Florida exposure testing that we've done for the last 20 years with all of our colors of film. So every color that Tedlar is available in, which ranges from nice bright whites to blacks, dark grays, dark browns. So you're seeing the aged film underneath and then the fresh film on top. Again, virtually no color change. And when we look at all of our films over time, they all change with a delta of below 5 units of color. About 3 to 4 is invisible to the human eye. So maybe our brightest colors, you could see something very slightly, but we would assume essentially invisible to the human eye.
That's incredible.
Look under a microscope too. We don't see any cracking, chalking, any kind of those surface issues that you get from long UV exposure as well.
And again, this is 20 years in the Florida sun.
It is.
And moisture.
Yep.
Yeah.
The harshest environment there is. So another performance attribute is the formability. So I mentioned the flexibility of Tedlar film. We stretch it when we manufacture. We make sure that it's optimized for really anything you need to mold it into. So what that's really good for is protecting bent edges. Tedlar can go to 0T, so a full bend. PVDF paints typically start cracking at 1 or 2 T bend, which is a lesser bend, so not fully extreme. Metal will break long before Tedlar does. So you see on this bent edge, we've got a lamination that was installed about 50 years ago, 1983, 40 years ago. And meanwhile, we've got a PVDF coated side of the roof, which was done in 1999. So, half that time. And we've got cracks and corrosion on all the bent edges, which is, what happens over time with a more brittle paint system. But because Tedlar is so flexible, there's no concern about exposed edges when it's formed. And here you're going to see that nice and up close. So this is in our microscope, right? So we've got 0T bend. We bent the metal all the way in half. And then we sprayed it with salt spray for 2,000 hours. You can see bottom left, the Tedlar film laminate, no issues on that bend, still fully protected. The PVDF coated metal is corroding pretty badly because it was cracked when it got bent. And that's the same thing that happens with those pinholes as well.
To have that type of testing to really be able to know, and especially salt spray, like we're talking about with those coastal environments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we check for, is how is it going to do in the worst possible environment.
Yeah.
So here's another really nasty one. So we're looking at chemical plants, right? So we're looking at industrial applications where there might be like some corrosive gases or exposure to other nasty elements. And we're looking at a couple chemical tests that we do where we basically dip a painted or laminated panel into chemicals. The PVDF coated steel that you're seeing, that's what we did our test on the left, it's starting to bubble right away pretty quickly in less than 200 hours. And then the PVF film, we've got 2 of our strongest chemical solutions for 1,000 hours, no reaction whatsoever. And it can sit for quite a bit longer than that as well. And you see what that looks like in the real world, this picture on the left. The Tedlar laminated side on the right, that's been up for 7-8 years at this point, no issues. The other side has to be replaced every 2 years because it gets really nasty within 1 to 2 years. And a lot of these super corrosive chemical plants, they budget for that they're going to have to replace pretty frequently. So the material savings, the cost savings, the labor savings, if you can 3x, 4x the life of your metal is tremendous.
Yeah. And the disruption, you don't want to have to be doing all of that every 2 years. The disruption to whatever's happening in that building. That is great. Yeah,
there's a significant benefit. So this is actually not on metal, but this is just a test we did, a very extreme example, but on PVC. So this is what people would use for, an awning or some sort of fabric structure. Mm-hmm. We tested clear Tedlar and then no Tedlar. So you see within 1 year of South Florida testing, the other side, the non-Tedlar protected, has absolutely molded, mildewed, filthy. Metal's not going to do it quite as badly as this. This is an extreme example, but you
Right.
see how well it protects even this, kind of cheap material that has a tendency to get gross. Tedlar is going to protect that. And, we'll keep this test running for 10 plus years, and I'm sure it's going to look just as good. And when we talk about anti-graffiti, so I mentioned Tedlar is also used for interiors, wallpaper, wall panels. That's where we do most of our stain testing because that's going to have the worst exposure. So you're actually seeing on the stain tests on the top, iodine. So that's used in hospitals a lot, really nasty stain. And then we cleaned it with acetone. The side on the left does not have Tedlar, stained, bleached out by the cleaning agent. Side on the right has Tedlar. The stain is completely cleanable and it's not impacted by any cleaning agents. So bottom right, you're seeing a little piece of metal that we graffitied up and then we wiped it clean. Half of it's got Tedlar, half of it doesn't. So you can see the side laminated with Tedlar has no ghosting, no shadow of the graffiti. It just came right off again because it's very, very cleanable.
And I think this is so important for exterior contractors to be aware of, because even if you're only doing roofing and you're doing someplace that has walls on each side that maybe you are building up, this is a solution that you can talk to owners about. But if as an exterior contractor doing siding and all the other parts that go with it, doors, everything else, this is a great solution.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tedlar can be used anywhere metal is used. So roofing, facades, gutters, all of that. And then just getting into our warranties. So Tedlar film offers the best warranties on the market, especially in those coastal areas. So we're looking at 40 years for roofing, up to 40 years, up to 50 years for side panels, facades, and no coastal restrictions. So this covers the appearance of the film. No cracking or chalking will be visible. And then again, no coastal restrictions. That warranty is valid right up to within 1,500 feet of the coastline. So we like to think of this as it's going to save a lot of labor and cost for building owners over the lifetime of the building. And there's also a sustainability message there where you're replacing materials less frequently and you're getting a longer life out of your buildings, which is going to reduce the footprint of that building from the moment it's built to the moment that building is taken down. And just to point out, when we look at PVDF coatings, which is kind of the best coating on the market today, we look at some of the warranty that it is excluded for them. So those paints do not have warranties that go right up to the coastline, and those tight bends are not included. Exposure to salt water and heavy UV, there's exclusions around there. And Tedlar warranties cover all of those things that PVDF warranties exclude, including the need for twice annual freshwater rinses in coastal environments. You don't need that with Tedlar. So low maintenance across the board and a better warranty. And then finally, the color range. So just while we're in this learning objective, Tedlar is available. This is just a sampling of them. These are some of the most popular colors for building exteriors, but we've got a whole range of colors that are matched to some of the most popular paint colors, all the way from those dark grays and browns that are so popular right now to some nice bright reds, blues, greens.
There's nothing better than having what you're talking about supported by data. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that data and the real life experiences in the job. I know in roofing, people want to see that. They want to know, I can trust this. This is going to work for my customers.
So I showed this earlier, where extraordinary resistance to fade. When we're looking at a 41-year-old facade, this is by the coast and it's on steel. So you can see it has really good corrosion protection. Tedlar is compatible with steel and aluminum, in any grade that you have those metals. And this is a more recent application. So this is that Hilton Head Hotel. You can now see how big it is from that picture on the right. So right on the coastline, this was done with aluminum to replace a steel roof that had been there and corroded quite badly. And it's, almost 7,000 square feet. And this building owner decided to specify Tedlar because of the low maintenance, the improved warranty, and they chose the mist gray color to do this coastal application. So you can see how tough that environment was on the previous roof. We can see it's all corroded on the edges where that paint kind of cracked and exposed the metal. And installing it, we got some, quotes and testimonials from the installers and the roofers, and they felt that it was much hardier during installation, that it was able to withstand scratching better, and that, it's a really great finished product that has a really nice long warranty for that hotel owner. Here's another recent one in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So this is beautiful. Used to be a very famous resort, got knocked down and they rebuilt it with about 15 new buildings with matte black Tedlar roofs. Jackson Hole is a very diverse climate, so it's going to change temperatures all the time. Those roofs are going to expand and contract. There's going to be hailstorms, strong UV exposure. So Tedlar was a perfect solution to basically withstand anything that this climate's going to throw at these roofs. So this is
Wow.
a facade in Paris that has been up for 40 years, actually almost 50 years at this point. It's never changed. It's the Pullman Hotel now. It's been under multiple ownerships, but it has this white Tedlar facade that has never had to be touched up over its entire life through multiple ownerships. So it's kind of a landmark in Paris.
When you think about the money saved on not having to redo that or to do anything for almost 50 years. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's huge.
Yep, absolutely. So here's just another example in Tokyo of a facade where it didn't change color over time. So again, this is coastal, pretty corrosive, and it's on this kind of bent, funky facade shape. And here's a nice one at a thermal power plant in Okinawa. So corrosive environment. You can see the exterior cap here was not protected with Tedlar and it has fully rusted. It's completely changed color. But right next to it, you have the Tedlar exterior walls, some nice sharp bends there. No issues at all with the Tedlar, protected all the seams and all the bends. And this is from 1986. So we're looking at about 30 years.
Wow.
And then here is it's actually a steel roofing on the inside of this manufacturing facility where high temperature acid gas is just floating up and hitting the inside of that ceiling. And they did, as we showed earlier, half with paint, half with Tedlar. And the Tedlar life is 3 to 4x from what we've seen so far. And it's still going.
Still going. And then when you look at that corrosion, that's crazy.
I know. Yeah, it's pretty bad. And again, they were ready for that. That's what they budget, but they didn't realize that it was possible to have a solution that enabled them to not disrupt work, not shut down the power plant, to redo the roof every few years.
Do all that, yeah.
This is our manufacturing facility. So we did, as I mentioned, all the buildings there. We've got, 30 plus years of buildings that have not changed color. And then finally, where you can get Tedlar. We have tons of those case studies on our website at tedlar.com. If you want to ever see more, we're constantly taking pictures of where we've got Tedlar installed around the world. And we work now with Metal Alliance, who is a distributor in Florida. So they're working really closely with, obviously those coastal areas, and they've got all of the certifications that you would need, over 45 different product approval ratings, including Miami-Dade, all the wind uplift and water penetration tests that are compliant with really strict hurricane regulations. So they're very heavily tested, and they have several colors of Tedlar available for your building construction needs today.
And when you're talking about it being available through the Metal Alliance, this is national. So just as everybody's watching this,
it is, absolutely.
And you can find both Metal Alliance and Tedlar have full directories on Roofers Coffee Shop. And so you can get any of those places, going directly there, finding them. This is the kind of, if you're looking, especially for, as Corynn has talked about, all those coastal areas, I mean, it's just such a great solution, and they will help you through the whole specification and project.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So Metal Alliance has distribution in Texas as well, but as Heidi said, it is national. They sell to the Caribbean, international as well if needed. So great for those coastal environments, but also heavy UV areas, fire zones. Metal's becoming more and more popular in areas like California that have heavy fire zones. Tedlar is an extremely low smoke, very fire safe material. That's why it's specified into aircraft. So it's really great for those kind of demanding environments as well.
When you think about coastal, you think about fire, you think about wind, you think about everything. It just brings it all together into a high performance, beautiful, and a roof that will stay looking beautiful for a very long time.
Very long time.
Yeah. Yes, that is excellent. Well, thank you, Corynn. Thank you. And for everyone out there, just so you make sure you have your discussion sheet. Again, we went over the new technology for metal roofing that we learned isn't really new, just new to us. We went over the performance of Tedlar PVF film, and we also went over the field performance of Tedlar PVF film and where you can get it, which is going to be with the Metal Alliance. You can find all of that on Roofers Coffee Shop in the directories, so you can get more information. Corynn, thank you so much. This was very informative.
Yeah, thank you. Really excited to be here.
It worked great. And thank all of you. Thank you so much for watching all the Lunch and Learns. Be sure to catch all of them under the Read, Listen, Watch navigation. We've been doing them all year long, and we'll be starting. Now we're into 2023. Very exciting. So be sure to download your discussion points, have your conversation now, take that picture and send it in. And one last time, Corynn, thank you so much for being here and everything you're doing for the industry.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next Roofers Coffee Shop Lunch and Learn.